or more than 6 decades, General Hospital has thrived on one simple, powerful idea: no one is ever truly gone. In Port Charles, the dead return, the presumed lost walk back into town, and the villains you swore you'd never see again somehow find their way out of a grave, a prison, or a frozen river. It's part of the soap's DNA. Fans have learned to expect the unexpected, to brace themselves whenever a body is never shown or a goodbye feels a little too open-ended. But lately, something different is happening in the fandom. For the first time in a long while, a loud, emotional, and surprisingly unified group of viewers is saying the unthinkable. There is one character they truly do not want to see come back. Not as a ghost. Not as a twin. Not with amnesia. Not with a miraculous cure. Not even with a redemption arc. They don't want this character resurrected, recast, or rewritten. They don't want the door cracked open. They want it sealed shut. And the reasons why say a lot about how General Hospital has changed, how its audience has evolved, and what kinds of stories fans are willing, or no longer willing, to accept. Every soap has characters whose exits divide viewers. Some leave too soon. Some stay too long. Some are written out with dignity, others with chaos. But every so often, a character departs in a way so emotionally violent, so narratively extreme, that their shadow lingers over the show long after they are gone. This character is one of those. Their final storyline wasn't just dramatic, it was traumatizing for the canvas. It involved manipulation, betrayal, moral collapse, and consequences that rippled through multiple families. The character crossed lines that, in the eyes of many fans, can't be uncrossed. They didn't just make mistakes. They didn't just fall into darkness. They actively destroyed lives and then watched the fallout with chilling detachment. In classic soap fashion, the door was left ajar. No definitive, on-screen death. No body. No funeral that couldn't later be undone. Just enough ambiguity for the writers to one day say, surprise, they're alive. And that's exactly what fans are dreading. One of the biggest reasons fans don't want this character back is simple but powerful. Their story already reached a natural, devastating conclusion. Soaps are notorious for reopening old chapters. A villain returns. A romance is revived. A tragedy is retconned. Sometimes it works beautifully. Other times, it cheapens what once felt meaningful. In this case, the character's exit served as emotional closure for several long-running arcs. It forced other characters to grow, to grieve, to rebuild, to confront their own darkness. It reshaped relationships. It altered family dynamics. It pushed the show into a new era. To bring this person back would risk undoing all of that. Fans fear that a return would feel like a reset button, erasing the hard-earned development of characters who finally moved forward. Pain would be reopened not in a way that deepens the story, but in a way that feels repetitive and manipulative. There's a growing sentiment in the fandom that permanence matters. That not every loss should be reversible. That sometimes, letting a character stay gone gives weight to the world and makes future stakes feel real. Soap viewers are famously forgiving. Murderers become heroes. Kidnappers become romantic leads. Characters who once terrorized the town are later invited to weddings and holiday dinners. But even in a genre built on redemption, there are lines. This character crossed one of them. Their actions weren't impulsive. They weren't the result of mind control, brain tumors, or secret twins pulling the strings. They were calculated, personal, cruel, and they targeted people the audience deeply loves: children, vulnerable characters, legacy families. The damage they caused wasn't just physical, it was psychological. Trust was shattered. Innocence was lost. Lives were permanently altered. For many fans, the idea of this character returning and being reintegrated into Port Charles, walking the same hallways, interacting with the same families, possibly even being redeemed, feels not dramatic, but insulting. It would suggest that some traumas can be neatly packaged into a forgiveness arc, that accountability can be rewritten, that the pain of the victims can be subordinated to the shock value of a return. And viewers are pushing back against that. Another key reason behind the resistance is sheer exhaustion. For years, General Hospital has relied heavily on the "they are not really dead" twist. Characters have been presumed dead in explosions, car crashes, shootings, fires, and natural disasters, only to reappear months or years later with a new face, a new agenda, or a new secret. At first, it was thrilling. Now, some fans feel it's becoming predictable. When every death is temporary, death itself loses narrative power. When every goodbye is reversible, grief becomes hollow. When every villain can come back for another round, the story starts to feel like it's stuck in a loop. This particular character's return would symbolize that problem more than any other. It would signal that no matter how final a moment feels, the writers are always willing to undo it for the sake of shock. And a growing portion of the audience is asking for something different, consequences that stick. There's also a practical storytelling issue. The current canvas is crowded with rich, complex arcs, generational conflicts, romantic triangles, political intrigue, corporate warfare, and emotional reckonings that have been building for months, even years. New characters are finding their footing. Legacy characters are being redefined. Long-simmering secrets are finally coming to light. Reintroducing this controversial figure would suck oxygen out of all of it. Their return wouldn't be a subtle thread woven into the tapestry. It would be a narrative earthquake, pulling focus, demanding screen time, and inevitably dragging the show back into old territory that many fans feel has already been fully explored. Viewers worry that instead of moving forward, the show would become trapped in its own past, recycling trauma rather than creating new, meaningful drama. Soap opera fandom isn't casual. It's intimate. Longtime viewers have watched these characters for decades. They've grown up with them, cried with them, aged alongside them. When a storyline hits especially close to home, dealing with abuse, manipulation, loss, or betrayal, it can resonate deeply, sometimes uncomfortably so. For some fans, this character's arc was not just entertaining, it was distressing. It mirrored real-life experiences of control, gaslighting, and violation of trust. Watching it unfold was painful, even when brilliantly acted and written. The idea of reliving that trauma through a resurrection storyline feels unnecessary and, to some, emotionally irresponsible. They don't want to be forced back into that darkness for the sake of a twist. One of the biggest soap tropes is the romantic retcon, turning a once-toxic relationship into an epic love story through selective memory and sweeping music. Fans are terrified that if this character returns, the show might attempt to rehabilitate not just the individual, but the relationship dynamics surrounding them. That past abuse could be softened, reframed, or minimized in service of nostalgia or fan service. The backlash against that possibility is fierce. Viewers have become more vocal about wanting responsible storytelling, especially when it comes to issues of consent, power imbalance, and psychological harm. They don't want history rewritten to make a monster palatable or a victim suffering romanticized. A return could risk exactly that. There's also a forward-looking argument. General Hospital is in a transitional era, slowly passing the torch to a new generation of characters while still honoring its legacy. Fans want fresh stories, new rivalries, unexpected romances, and villains who feel relevant to the current emotional landscape of the show. Dragging this particular character back would feel like clinging to an old crutch instead of investing in new dramatic possibilities. It's not that fans don't respect the history. They do. They just don't want to be trapped by it. Interestingly, in many fan discussions, people don't even say the character's name anymore. They refer to them in euphemisms: that one, the syringe storyline, the mind control arc, the one who destroyed everything. That silence speaks volumes. It's not indifference. It's not forgetfulness. It's a collective agreement that some doors are better left closed. The resistance to this character's return isn't just about one person. It reflects a broader shift in the soap audience. Viewers still crave drama, twists, and high-stakes storytelling. But they also want emotional integrity. They want growth that isn't undone. They want villains who face real consequences. They want trauma to matter. In other words, they want General Hospital to honor its past without being enslaved by it. In a genre built on resurrections, amnesia, and miraculous comebacks, saying don't bring them back is almost radical. Yet that's exactly what a large portion of the General Hospital fandom is doing right now. Not because they hate drama. Not because they dislike the actor. Not because they've lost interest in the show. But because, in this one case, the story feels complete, the damage feels too deep, and the cost of reopening old wounds feels higher than the reward of a shocking return. Some characters are meant to come back. Some are meant to be redeemed. Some are meant to haunt the canvas forever. And some, fans believe, are meant to stay exactly where they are, gone, but never forgotten, their absence a reminder that in Port Charles, not every ending should be undone.